Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back. It's Mia, and today we are discussing the Wednesday series on Netflix. Now, since this series was released in full and I've watched every single episode, we are going to talk spoilers about every single episode, episodes 1 through 8. So if you have not seen it yet, come back to this discussion after you've watched the series. But I will say, you should. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely do watch this series. It's really fun. It's really unique and creative. And even if you don't really like the Addams Family, I'm sure there'll be something that you can pull from this, because this has become a sensation. So we're gonna slow our way into spoilers here, and I just want to start by saying I don't know how Netflix does it, but I've been tracking this since at least 2020, right around the time when, honestly, Tiger King came out, but also Queen's Gambit. It was like never in the history of ever had I been like so transfixed to the point where it was like I just have to watch another episode and I have to watch another episode. Like I'll be watching 3 hours of television at once, which is rare for me because sometimes it's like I really can only sit through like a 45-minute episode and then I kind of want to move on to something else. But I don't know how Netflix does it, because they did it again with Squid Game and they did it again with Stranger Things season 4, where it's just like you're like zombified. You're like, I have to watch all episodes right now. So just to say, that's what happened with the Wednesday series, and I was completely surprised by this because I saw the trailer looked good, but I was like, maybe it's not for me. And then my sister put it on at one point and I was just trying to like do my work, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Oh, this is kind of fascinating. Oh, what's going on here and there? And I just ended up watching the whole episode, and then we watched another and another. So yeah, Netflix, what's going on, man? What are you doing to your shows? Anyway, let's move on from that. And I want to talk about the Addams Family as a whole first, because it's a kind of interesting entry point for me. Because I am kind of like in the know about the Addams Family, right? Like I remember watching, I don't know if anybody else in like a Gen Z sort of area remembers or has ever watched the 60s Addams Family television show. I used to watch that a lot with my grandma, and that just is sort of impressed in my brain. And then also being a 90s kid, growing up with the 2 films that came out, and those were still kind of buzzing when I was growing up as a kid. So I remember those as well with Christina Ricci. So it was nice to have her back in this role, and having such an expansive role too. I thought it would just be a cameo, but I guess that's what made it extra cool watching this series, is like seeing how Tim Burton pulled from the movies, seeing how he pulled from probably the television show, and I'm sure, it's all rooted in the comic strip. So that was really fun. You've got all these references. You got Thing and Cousin It, and the double snap, being the secret society sign. And then the other thing where Wednesday was called Kooky, and she's like, I prefer spooky, like a reference to the theme songs. I thought those were all pretty cool. Now, another reservation that I had when watching this, at least after the first episode, I was like, how are they going to create a series that is centralized around Wednesday Addams? Because she's got this personality, and you're like, how many zingers and clapbacks could she potentially have? And it's all like so drab and mundane. And so I was wondering if that was gonna get old really quick, but it really didn't. And number one, maybe it's an acquired taste. After a while you begin to kind of like her characterization, but also I think it is the fact that throughout the series we do get a lot of variation in Wednesday, and like she grows as a character, which is really cool. But in those in-between moments, like we do get to see some of those things that bring her like this wicked sense of delight, like seeing, I don't know what it was one time, but like kind of noticing just like when she likes something in her eyes just kind of go but it's still very controlled. I love Jenna Ortega for that. Such an amazing actress and perfect for this role. And also like when Wednesday does get into those deeper emotions, because she's not someone who really shows her emotions. So when she does, it's a really poignant moment, like when they stabbed Thing and she thought he was gonna die, or like when Eugene was in the hospital. So she really shows those moments. I can only imagine what the directing was like, or her making her own choices with that, but she played the role so well. And now I'm like, I just have to add another favorite character into my list, and it's her. Like I said on Twitter, it's my emotional support alternative goth weirdo Netflix character. I need more of that. So let's get down to the plot of everything. We can finally talk more specifics about the plot, or just the way that the plot was handled, because what's funny is, like, watching this, I was kind of like pillowed between two other, oddly enough, Netflix mysteries. One of those being Enola Holmes 2, which I reviewed and I really, really loved. And then the other those being Glass Onion, which I reviewed and I also really, really love. So I was kind of like, how is the Wednesday series going to hold its weight between these two mystery movies? And this is just kind of like a mystery series. We've never really thought of Wednesday Addams as a detective, but I will say I think the way that they wrote this whole thing was rather interesting. All the twists by the end I never really saw, but yeah, there were a lot of intriguing things going on, and I listed them out because, like, okay, there was a lot of things that we were trying to connect, right? So we had the prophecy about Wednesday from Rowan's mom, why she the whole thing about her seeing her ancestor Goody, obviously the big monster ravaging the whole town. There's the mystery about her father's conviction, whether he was guilty or not, and what happened. We had the stuff with the Gates house and all that with Crackstone, the pilgrim, kind of like the founder of the town. And so those were a lot of threads, and maybe there were even more that I haven't mentioned. But I guess on one hand, sometimes the plot did feel a little convoluted in the sense that they just kept adding all those little threads, and sometimes it was a little bit too much to try to keep up with. And I'm like, okay, who's this character and this person is doing what and da-da-da. But the good thing is that I do feel like they wrapped up nicely, and especially the twist at the end. And there's some things that I saw coming and some things that surprised me. So first of all, the whole thing about Tyler being the Hyde. Actually, my sister pointed that out like halfway through the series. She's like, yeah, he's got to be the monster. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. So my whole thing was like, yeah, all the evidence looks like it's adding up to him, but I thought it was his father trying to cover up him going on these murderous rampages, and as the sheriff, he can be in that position to falsify information and stuff like that. So I thought he was just trying to cover up and protect his son, but it sounds like the sheriff technically didn't know that his son was the Hyde up until the point where we get to the end and he has this kind of like realization. So maybe he was like in denial and he didn't want it to be his son up until he like really had to face the music. But really the whole plot point that surprised me the most was the Miss Thornhill twist, because they really played that one real slick, especially with her therapist being this red herring, like she was really acting shady throughout the whole thing. So I was like, oh yeah, of course she's Laurel Gates, of course she's been commanding the whole thing. And then at the end you have the thing with Eugene, and he's like, oh, I saw someone wearing red boots, and she's like, oh, it's Miss Thornhill. So I like that they made her character seem so sweet and innocent, and I honestly didn't suspect a thing. So that was actually really great storytelling, and I gotta hand it to them. Oh, another thing though, okay, during the finale, I gotta say, it kind of felt like I was watching a CW show, which I didn't really feel like that throughout the whole series up until that moment. Now, maybe a little bit when the monster would show up and the CGI was kind of, wonky, but also just add that monster on top of Joseph Crackstone when he's resurrected and he's got these like prosthetics like he's from like I don't know, it almost even reminded me of like a Disney Channel movie, the way it was just kind of cheesy and kind of felt low budget. Like everything else, it felt like the set was done well, the costumes, there were so many things that were done well with this that it was kind of like by the time we got to that finale, I don't know, it just felt kind of cheesy to me. But I'm sure they did the best that they could with the budget they were given. So anyway, I just also want to mention just how great the characters were in this. Like Enid and Wednesday were such an awesome duo. I also loved Eugene. To me, he was kind of like the Dustin of the series. Just, he's like an adorable kid. He's got curly hair. He's super smart. So I'm glad that they allowed him to live. And I was like, if you kill Eugene, so help me God. And then also Bianca surprised me. I'm glad that she had a bit of a redemption by the end with her and Wednesday kind of making up. And I guess on the opposite end is Tyler, because he was really sweet, but boy was he mean when he revealed his true colors. So that was interesting, but also I guess now it opens it up for Xavier to be her love interest down the line. So at least there's no competition, right? And then Gwendolyn Christie as Weems. I love Gwendolyn Christie. We just saw her in The Sandman and I've loved her as well. Like pretty much anything Captain Phasma, Brienne of Tarth and Game of Thrones. I love her. So I was so disappointed to see that they killed her off in this series. I think she would have made an excellent addition in season 2 if they decide to do season 2, but I was like, no, don't kill her, please. And then just the rest of the Addams family, especially like seeing Luis Guzman as Gomez, Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, absolutely killed it, absolutely slayed. And Fred Armisen, I love him so much. He was a nice little cameo as Uncle Fester, so I hope Pete comes back for season 2 as well. Wow, so I didn't think I would have so much to say about the series, but it was just that good. And so I'm like, Netflix, do the right thing, renew this for season 2 immediately. I mean, according to the headlines, and Netflix is always a little sussy with their numbers, but according to the headlines, this had a bigger premiere week as far as watch numbers than Stranger Things. So that's pretty huge. And it's like, all right, let's just give us our season 2 already. And I guess the good thing is as well is that they closed up the narrative, but I like that they definitely did leave it open to, hey, here's what else we have planned. As far as like, we know Tyler escaped from his confinement, and then we have the whole thing about Wednesday's stalker. Kind of reminds me of like A from Pretty Little Liars. So there's a bigger thing going on, and I like that they already have these threads set up for a season 2, maybe even a season 3 if they really wanted to go on that long. And yeah, I'm like, we need a season 2 now. What's gonna happen? So please, Netflix, one more favor. We need season 2 of Wednesday, and we need it to be like greenlit ASAP. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it here, guys. Let me know what you thought about the Wednesday series in the comments. I'm sure maybe there's some stuff I didn't talk about. I want to talk about how Principal Weems reminded me of Snape. I'll leave it there. But yeah, if there's some other stuff that I didn't get to talk about, leave it down in the comments. Let me know what you thought about it. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this discussion. It helps others who love Wednesday help to see this discussion, and maybe Netflix will see it too so they can renew for season 2. And please subscribe for more, because we'll be talking about more Netflix, more TV reviews, more movie reviews, and all sorts of good stuff. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.